Let's go. Thank you. Hey guys, William here from the Browser, and I'm here to talk to you today about how aggregators contribute to the growth of the DeFi and crypto in general. Excuse me, I lost my voice 2 weeks ago, so I'm going to do my best, but I'm going to have to take some coke in order to make up for this. So this is basically what we do. We allow traders, DeFi users to trade, and with a value proposition that is minimizing the price impact of what you call slippage. And since the last, I would say, 3-4 years, the liquidity on decentralized exchanges got extremely better. And now I think we can compare an aggregator or a decentralized exchange aggregator in general to a Binance and Coinbase in terms of efficiency. And that's the example illustrates how good we can do by trading on a decentralized exchange aggregator like Browser. We like to call ourselves mostly an aggregator, a middleware rather than an aggregator. So anything that can be traded basically can be traded using Browser or another aggregator. So NFTs are an example where users can buy inside NFTs. They can also use Browser as a framework to build marketplaces and other things that can work for their particular use case, such as a NFT aggregator, for instance. Last thing about Browser, it's I was saying is we like to see this in middleware, so which is our case. So most of our volume, actually 2/3 of our volume, come from third parties like CowSwap, Enzyme, MetaMask, Aggregators, and so on, processing $54 billion so far, mostly in the last 2 years now, more or less. But what we're here for, I think, yes, most of us, is to bring the mass adoption to the space. We've been saying that for the last at least 6 years. For those of you who've been here before, I think it's not a subject forever. I think we are at a turning point, but I guess we've been saying that for the last 6 years, I guess. But I feel like since the last cycle, especially with the NFTs, it feels to be happening more than before. It slowed down for the last cycle, but I believe we reached a critical mass. Many people who've never heard about crypto are now talking about crypto normally, which wasn't the case in the previous cycles, I guess. But also, some, I would say, cases in 2022, last year, made the point that DeFi is the way to go for crypto, and CeFi was like a hack because there was no infrastructure, or like the infrastructure wasn't there. But I believe we reached kind of a critical mass in terms of infrastructure that allow us to maybe start thinking of completely bypassing CeFi, and I hope in the short term, potentially hopefully in this coming cycle. So what we mean by scaling or growing DeFi, there are a lot of metrics we can take, but I think it can come down to a few. So there are like chain scalability, which I think it's not the role of DeFi protocols to solve, but those are one of the things we track in order to make sure that whatever is building is running smooth and fast and cheap. And I believe with layer 2s and a lot of layer 1s, we are very close to matching at least CeFi performance. But what DeFi can contribute to is bringing a lot of volume, value locked, users, of course. And also, I think it contributes a lot in the improvement of user experience. I mean, obviously, aggregation. But just coming back to aggregation in general, like what is aggregation? We see aggregation everywhere. We can even see the block as an aggregator for people who want to work and need the whole setup that's made for them, without having to worry about whatever is needed for setting up an office. But the common example that we give is our grocery stores, where we go to a grocery store in order not to worry about whatever we want to buy. We know that there is an aggregate of the product that are available in the grocery store for us. And the role of the grocery store is to take care of the supply and demand. So the supply, they try to bring in as much as whatever we need, and the demand of the bringing user. Big limitations of grocery store. There are so many users that can come into a grocery store, which is not the case of the tech aggregators, like internet aggregators. Google, Facebook, any like web aggregator, Web 2 aggregator, They meant to serve as much users as possible. They are designed in order to scale, and those were like the initial scalable aggregators that we have used since I would say the .com bubble. But typically, when we talk about aggregation, at least in DeFi or Web3, the analogy comes to the travel industry. And the travel industry gets established a lot, and there are a lot of products and super competitive. And we can break down also categories or also the user journey when we're traveling from the inspiration to the post-trip, like after the trip, when we look for a place to travel, try to use some tools to get some inspiration if we have no idea where to go. So there's the kayaks, Google Flights, there's a lot of tools available. On the booking side, we use Skyscanner, Booking, Agoda, and Navis. There are even tools for preparations, even for trip organization, tripping, especially for professionals. At the right also use Uber and Lyft, Google Maps for the post trip. We leave reviews for those who cannot use those same tools to also know where to go when they get to the same city or the same place. But focusing on the travel and airline ticket aggregators, you can see them as like UIs for end users, like they aggregate the supply. But this is in reality coming from middlewares that are behind the scenes, like Sabre, Amadeus, and many others, that connects the liquidity or the supply, like airline companies with all their complexity. Airline companies, they have tickets, they have passenger allocations, they have pricing, and all of this changes in real time. And yeah, they are like the main middleware that sits between those UIs and the end users. So coming back to DeFi, when we say aggregation, there are trade aggregation, lending, borrowing, liquidity, farming, you name it. There are a lot of types or categories of aggregators. And the one we know best, at least at Microsoft, are the trading side of the aggregation. And there are a lot of similarities with those travel or like airline ticket aggregators. So you have the decentralized exchanges, actually we have hundreds. And in terms of pools, we have like tens of thousands of liquidity pools, where liquidity and states changes in real time on every block. And you have the end users who use general wallets or UIs and mobile apps and you name it. And middlewares like Paraswap and other aggregators, they sit in between and they allow this connection to happen with decentralized exchanges in optimal ways. Scanning liquidity in real time, scanning the states in real time, and optimizing that obviously for scalability reasons in order to serve those users the best way possible. But it's not just about trading. There are other use cases that can be built on top. For instance, there's integration we have with Aave, so that users can swap APYs, if you would. For instance, I have supplied WTC at 2%, and well, ETH now is at 3%. But if I were to do this manually, I would have to go to Aave, I would have to take out my BTC, swap it to ETH, deposit the ETH. I get maybe caught in slippage, I paid gas 3 times. But the big problem is what if I use this WTC to borrow USDT or USDC and have to pay back my loan? I mean, it's a complex and expensive and not capital efficient way to do that manually. And then integration with an aggregator simplifies all of that and makes it very efficient. Another use case would be, what if I supply BTC? If I did that a year ago, my BTC doubled in price at least, or maybe more, and borrowed USDT. Well, what I can do here is just pay back my loan with my BTC. So it's going to be swapped into USDC without having to touch anything else. And everything, like the magic happens behind the scenes. So that's also a big benefit for end users to use an aggregator in between. Also, one thing that aggregators contribute to a lot is volume. Of course, when you make a trade like this, a big trade, for the end user, they swap 10 billion USDT to ETH, but the complexity of the trade makes it that it's using lots of underlying exchanges here, about like 20 indexes behind the scenes. The thing is, if you do a multi-hop, you say 10 million to 10 million, but you are swapping an intermediary token, so the overall volume is at least double of that. So DEX DEXs, they get much more volume than the inputs and the outputs, which is great. I mean, it's more volume for DEXs, more fees for MPs, which brings more liquidity and it's a virtuous cycle. So I think that's a big contribution that aggregators make for the space, especially here in particular for the decentralized chains. Last example is for improving the user experience for NFTs. Here, a user has an NFT, they want to sell it. Let's suppose we are still in the bull market. I think prices should be lower than that. But anyways, you have USDT, you want to sell for USDT. I have ETH. In one trade, I can sell my ETH, swap it to USDC for that particular amount, the exact amount. He's going to buy the NFT, so the seller receives USDT as they ask for. The buyer receives the NFT, the NFT, but they they pay with a different token. Analogy would be like when we travel to a non-European country, we have a credit card with euro, we go to Switzerland, I pay Swiss francs, but I don't need to have Swiss francs, I just pay with my euro card, but I don't know who's taking the fees compared to the areas and all that. Here, everything is on chain, everything is groupable and traceable, so this is, I think, one of the biggest benefits we have in doing everything on chain trading. I think this should be my last example for C5 or for TradeFi actually. I think you must have heard this before. There are a lot of crypto or DeFi protocols who are building institutional products. In the last cycle, it used to be, hey, let's build on Hyperledger and do like some weird stuff and private chains, which is no longer happening right now. Most of the institutions, they are working on public blockchains using public DeFi protocols. Even it used to be forked, and I think I see more and more of these guys using the default deployments with maybe some layer on top for compliance, for KYC, AML, which is kind of understandable. And we work with some institutions who are using the real version of Paraswap, except that they are not trading yet on DEXs, they are trading with market makers. But I think it's like a drop. You need to get them on board somewhere, somehow, and the rest may happen at some point in the future. But yeah, so far they are using the default version, the mainnet, the same address deployed in mainnets, and that's, I think, it's a great thing. I believe DeFi tech is a technology, and even if they don't use the default version, they are still using the same tech, which I think is an upgrade versus what they have or what they use that dates to like the 70s or the 80s with like the very old technology. So I think it's a net positive anyways. So, but I think aggregators, they contribute a lot, obviously, in volume, as we saw. They help a lot the user experience, as an example with Aave and NFTs in general, at least indirectly by allowing third-party apps to access possibilities that they weren't available before aggregators were established, which brings indirectly more users to the space. So I think that's it, and thank you for the attention. So to ask questions.
Thank you for the talk. I have one question related a bit broader, but all the DeFi space. We see this model with liquidity pool that are really relevant, and on top of that, aggregators also, that makes really sense. But we also see recently some different models of order book life, thinking about project like Monroe. In a way also, I think Uniswap X is doing also something a bit similar. What is your view on that compared to the current state of DeFi?
Okay, let's go back to AMM, traditional AMM models. Well, I think the fact of having better infrastructure, like layer 2s, makes it that on-chain order book became possible. We used to have, I remember well, Oasis, or like SAO, Ether Delta, back in the previous cycles. But Oasis, I think, was the only one who was fully on-chain, and it wasn't able to scale because it was everything super expensive. You create an order, cancel order, everything you have to pay gas for. Which I think if they have to deploy Oasis again on-chain, it would have worked. But I think what works best is a hybrid models where you can still have some critical components running on chain and others running off chain. Use of X is maybe a good example. Thank you.
Maybe my question is stupid, I love the aggregator thesis. I think it makes total sense, and you explained why it makes total sense to understand. But then I'm not sure if I understand why you guys are opting for being a middleware only. Like, wouldn't it make sense if you're an aggregator to be end user facing? Like, on get-go.
Well, it depends how you see it. Like most middlewares, they have their own UIs and try to have as much direct relationship with users
And then
UIs and mobile apps.
And UI feeds.
Yeah, some with UI feeds, very juicy UI feeds and like coming to identities of others. I can understand, but I think it's good to separate between the user-facing product and the protocol. User-facing product, the product that are not decentralized by nature, no matter how we'd like to love to see that at some point in the future. But I believe the protocol should be neutral public goods that don't belong to any entity and that are not under control of any entity, while the user interfaces are like ways to have this direct relationship to the user. But I feel like in the future, aggregators would look more like a Sabre or a Amadeus than a